the microphone working? Or I can't hear it. Yes. Operational excellence, know that I'm not operational. But I really appreciate thought. Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon. Enjoy your meal, and I'm trying to make it entertaining. Old man syndrome. We need the glasses for the notes. Really great to be here, and few words about me. As you can probably hear from the accent. Steffen Minkmar is the name, German national, worked for the Asian Development Bank, German nationality. I'm boomerang, so I used to work for ADB before 2007 to 20. Just toured the world and be back for 2 years. Great to be here again. And I'm here to talk to you about my experiences, my ideas on how to protect data. So from vulnerability to victory, it's quite a big promise that I'm supposed to deliver today in 18 minutes and 52 seconds. I'm gonna overextend anyway. But let me fill you in on the agenda. So I'm going to talk a little bit about vulnerabilities and challenges, security practices, end-of-breach practices, and future solutions, and AI-related challenges that we are facing. This is not going to be a technical presentation, so I'm going to keep it high level, also in the interest of not losing you right after lunch. Especially when we talk about the vulnerabilities and challenges. Let me take a step back, because data breach and the risk of data breach, obviously it's very real, it's very costly when it happens, and I'm going to have to send a couple of slides to you later, but let's put things a little bit in perspective. I like going back to a more global risk perspective, and this is where I like going back to the annual security or annual risk report of the World Economic Forum. These guys, these are the big country leaders that meet every year in January in Switzerland, in Davos. And they talk about the economic development, society and geopolitical development. And they also get advice from experts on risks. And when you look into the report, you won't find data breaches as a security risk. They talk about geopolitical risk, conflicts, and we have quite a few obviously in the world. And that is what really matters. But what they also do acknowledge and realize is that security is a major problem and needs to be addressed. When we zoom down a little bit to the Philippines, and this is what strikes me again and again, is we are here sitting on the ring of Pacific Fire, Pacific Ring of Fire. When we talk to our senior leaders and organizations, we need to understand that they have to look into other risks as well, environmental risks, legal risks. And what strikes me again and again is, if there was an earthquake happening here in Manila, there's a study from the Philippine government, the entire city would be split into 5-6 different disjoint parts, and there would be like 37,000 people dead if there was a magnitude 7.2 earthquake happening. 600,000 injured people, and I have the number here, like 1.5 trillion in losses because of an event like this. These are real issues, okay? And that's why data breaches, the risk associated with this is critical, but so is that. Keep that always in mind when talking to your senior manager about this. Now, that's not to downplay the risks, really, and when you see the numbers here, just pulled this from a presentation. If you just look into the cybercrime costs, it would be $10.5 trillion that are predicted. There are like for ransomware costs would go up to 265 billion by 2031. And ransomware is obviously one of the major challenges that we are facing also in my organization. Following the predictions by 2031, every 2 seconds they say there would be a ransomware attack. I feel like it's happening today already. So cyber security and data breaches are a serious issue and need to be looked into. So I don't think I have to tell you this. The challenge I usually have in talking these numbers to my management is they will say, but Steffen, we don't work, we are not in the US, not in the UK, we're not in any of those developed countries, we are here in the Philippines. And so I pulled a study from a master thesis student, quite recent, it's from 2024, so from December. And this gentleman, we looked into, okay, so what are the differences in attack patterns and data breach patterns between developing countries and developed countries. And what he figured out was that for the developing countries, and his theory is that, because of a less sophisticated regulatory framework, because of lack of access to sufficient security talents, the lack of enforcement, developing countries see more data breaches than developed countries. Strangely enough, and as a European, it's interesting to see, this master's thesis student also say, because there are things like the General Data Protection Regulation of the EU, because of the fines enforced in the regulation, organizations take security data protection way more serious than if this was not the case. I tend to agree with that. In terms of patterns, the student also came up with the theory that for the more developed countries, because of their higher level of control maturity imposed by regulatory requirements, it's a kind of different attack paths that cyber criminals take. You may have heard of deep fake, where basically videos are being created of CEOs and cause some financial people require them to make financial transactions. Well, I would argue that it could happen everywhere, but probably would have higher chances in a society where hierarchy plays a more predominant role. Phishing apparently is also one of those attack paths that always seem to work. And again, I think in a developing country or in a developed country environment, it's probably better talk with it because of better security awareness, perhaps because of better controls put in. I was also looking into some ideas and feedback on how is the situation here in the Philippines. And I stumbled over the study there, Cybersecurity in the Philippines, Global Context and Local Challenges. It's from, I think, 2022. And the authors of the study concluded that pretty much what I was trying already to explain. The country has a huge potential to contribute and to benefit from the digital transformation that's happening worldwide. But because, again, this is the author's opinion, the Philippines are still at the initial stages of the digital transformation. A lot of the decision makers are not yet fully aware of the threats and the challenges that come with going into a digital transformation of corporations and society. As such, there's not so much awareness about the potential risks and the risks that occur when you automate, digitalize business processes. That is one of the things that holds the country back, according to the study. And I feel like there is some truth to it. I'll tell you why. When I came back here 2 years ago and I had to go through endless heaps of getting working visa permission, the number of times I had to share my passport page via email to Google mail addresses supposedly looked at by Filipino embassy employees abroad just killed me. Now, I don't want to be overly critical, but I don't have a good feeling sharing my passport information with one of my wife or my kids to a Google mail address where I don't know who's actually have access. And it just illustrates my point. One thing that the Europeans, I believe, do quite well is also to consolidate their efforts to understand what kind of cyber attacks are happening. For John, who is from ING. I'm sure he is familiar with the Digital Operations Resiliency Act. It's a regulation coming from the EU and basically mandates that cybersecurity breaches of a certain gravity are being reported to a central registry, and they're being analyzed and reviewed. And why is that? Not just to add more bureaucracy to the process, but to better understand why these incidents happen. And if you see for certain sectors, you have the same recurring threat actors attacking organizations. And it would certainly benefit the country if such a process was in place as well. And then you take this kind of information and you draw conclusions from this. When conclusions in the sense that, okay, if you have always the same kind of threat actors, you operate in a certain way, you share the information, and different sectors and companies can learn from this and can take action from this. And last but not least, cybersecurity awareness. Awareness meaning things that we are doing today. Sitting here, talking together, discussing, exchanging. I know a lot of these things are happening. I think we can get even better. So I've tried to explain or to summarize a few data security and data breach practices that I've seen working quite well. And the worst one is very close to my heart, elevating the role of the CISO. And that's not to give the CISO, Chief of Information Security Officer, just a seat to talk with the big boys and girls. No. It helps the CISO to understand what the actual business expectations are. That requires, that's why it's killing me all the time when I see it, a CISO cannot be just a technical person. It needs to be a person that has a certain business understanding too. I've seen so many CISOs fail because they are extremely good in managing technical infrastructure, but they don't understand why they are doing it. And this needs to change. So CISOs, the ones that are here or that aspire to be one, need to understand what the business is all. Talked about retaining cybersecurity talents, following robust cybersecurity frameworks. It cracks me up all the time when I hear, oh, this organization has achieved ISO 27001 certification. That's fantastic. Do you know how many organizations still have security breaches even though they are certified? Probably all of them. We are, and I'm pretty sure we have. So just having a certification doesn't mean nothing. You really have to continuously improve. What I also found helpful is having good key security metrics in place. And when we talk about data breaches, what helps is to understand what's the percentage of your organization where you actually know if your document, if your unstructured data is confidential or not. How many of you have a tool in place that actually helps to classify documents? You cannot protect documents if you don't know what the classification level is. If you don't know, you have a security breach. We are measuring also the kind of confidential data that go to these Google Mail and Yahoo email. And then we take action. Say we can be quite brave. There's some procedural aspects. I would like to focus on two, but I already touched upon them: information classification and data protection. It's not just having a tool in place, and we talked about this in the previous panel. It's also making sure that these tools are being regularly maintained, updated, and most importantly, if you see somebody sharing confidential data with a third party they're not supposed to share, there need to be action. Disciplinary action, user awareness action, whatever, but people need to understand they're being monitored for the greater good, for the good of the organization. And the other one is creating incident response plan. If you have a data breach, you don't want to think about, oh, what do we do next? You need to have a plan, you need to have a playbook, you need to understand who you have to contact, what are the kind of people you need to talk to in order to contain the incident, and make sure that all the authorities and stakeholders are being informed. Last but not least, the technical aspects. I keep this short because most of you are probably from the technical side. I'm not going to bore you with this. What I would like to highlight though is backing up data is great. Testing the recovery of data is greater, but doing failover tests, actually understanding if you can move from one side to another because you were ransomware in one of your data centers is even best. One aspect, one element that's often overlooked is communication tools. Again, let's assume we had an incident, we had a data breach. Worse yet, we had a ransomware attack. All of your IT infrastructure is gone. You cannot log on anymore. You cannot use Teams or whatever tool you're using. How do you make sure that you can talk to the people you need to talk to if the usual communication channels are not available? You might say, okay, we have emergency notification systems, Everbridge is something we are using. Some people will probably go to WhatsApp or Signal or whatever. The point is, we need to have a system in place that allows you not only to talk, but also to have access to your business continuity plans, disaster recovery plans. And this is something many organizations don't have. Oh. Favorite topic of mine. Yeah, but we do have satellite phones. They're trying to make satellite phones work in the volcano break. And we're all covered in a dome of ash. Don't work. Here's an example for response procedure, something which is part of our playbooks. It's fairly straightforward. So imagine you have an incident, the data breach was detected. What's next? So you need to have somebody who's actually looking into this, an incident manager. And then this person is going to then branch out to different functions, making sure that everybody is informed, that you have a crisis committee established if it's a huge major incident impacting data, and that you contact the right people. Again, the reason I'm putting this up is not to tell you how great we are, it's just to showcase how simple it can be if you have something like this, which you can pull if you have a crisis. You really don't want to think about these things when it happens. Practice, practice, practice. This is also very important when you deal with data breaches. The Europeans, again, have come up with what they call the threat intelligence-based ethical red teaming exercise. It's basically penetration tests on Androids. Even from the European Central Bank, I've been going through, as a head of security, a couple of times through these exercises. They show you where your weak points are. So I would recommend that you Google for it, and perhaps if you have interest, you go through this. Tabletop exercises, maturity assessments, and as I mentioned, the backup and recovery tests, including failover tests, really, really essential for you, making sure that if you have a security incident, you can actually recover. So you can see I have a IT resiliency head, and then that's why I'm using these. Last slide here is about challenges posed by AI, potential solutions, and future innovations. Challenges, I kind of talked about it already, data leakage. We've done an analysis recently over the data that is traveling to those generative AI sites. And it's just shocking to see that people love these tools. They upload all sorts of corporate data to those sites. Of course, then the security guy comes in and says, you shall not do that. Then you're being caught. Thanks. But I think this is where we have to be clear and we have to stand our ground. AI, fantastic thing, but data leakage through AI is one of the challenges we are facing. Shadow ID, very similar. We have a set of corporate AI tools that we are using. Still, people go and find their own sites. When it comes to malicious inputs, data quality and privacy, it's clear an AI tool can only be as good as the data that you feed it with, the models that you are using, so it's one of the challenges. In terms of solutions, I spoke about data leakage protection solutions, making sure privacy by design is part of your system development process. You don't want to think about data privacy at the time when you roll out your IT system, because obviously then it's too. And for the last part, innovations. AI augmented development is something that we are embarking on, having those tools that help us to prepare and develop better code, have security included, teaching, training our developers and coders. This is one of the innovations we're using. AI-generated applications are very good when it comes to creating deepfake videos, but they're also very good in developing playbooks, how to respond to security incidents. So we're using them. Sustainable AI solutions can help you. Remember the first slide I presented about the environmental risks. They can help us to understand the likelihood and the impact of a flood to happen, of an earthquake to happen. And last but not least, and I'm sure all the vendors here can talk about that much better, AI can help for better IT practices. That brings me to my last slide, pretty much on time. Just a summary, so the key takeaways, if you like. Vulnerabilities, as I pointed out, they're not just technical challenges, and they need to be addressed holistically. Put yourself in the shoes of your corporate president, your board. You have to rank yourself in the risks for data security, data breaches, against some other risks. Communications, orchestrated response are at least as important as technical mitigation measures, and cybersecurity will require investments. We find a lot of people that will say, oh, we don't have for this, we have business as usual, we cannot practice, we cannot test, we don't have time for this crap. You have to stand your ground as an IT security professional, making sure that your board, the decision makers understand it's necessary. Artificial intelligence, fantastic, I love it, but it's a great source of data leakage. It needs to be used. And last but not least, investment in people in these fields is key, will be key. No matter how well the AI is working, it will never replace the human brain.
Thank you so much, Steffen. We would like to open the floor for some questions. Ladies and gents, kindly just approach the microphone if you would like to raise a question about the presentation. Anyone? I'd like to see someone coming up to our microphone there at the center. And I take this opportunity to discuss with our expert here on stage.
Come on, guys. It wasn't that bad.
I see one standing. Go ahead.
Well, you have my contact details, so if you want to stay in touch, you want to ask questions, happy to have a conversation with you for the conference today or afterwards. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, I have a question.
It's too late, sorry.
But thanks for your presentation. My question is, being from ADB, how would you rate the Philippines in terms of our readiness and skills with regards to cybersecurity as a country?
Maybe I was a little too subtle in my presentation. I think there are some good initial steps, and I see differences in the industries, especially the ones that are regulated, are probably more advanced than others. I would think the multinationals, because they're exposed to other regulation, more regulation, do better. I look at my own organization because that's what I can talk about. We still have a long way to go. And I think we are, I wouldn't call us ahead of the curve, but at least, you know, we are having good traction. But in terms of maturity, we can also do much better than the organization I used to work before. Again, one I was before was another development bank in Europe. And then I shared this with friends over lunch. Some of the things that I sometimes see here in my place would not have happened back in Europe.
Okay. Follow-up question in terms of rating from 1 to 10, how do you rate us?
The ADB is like 11 and a half. Because I have colleagues here, I have to say that. That's hard, I cannot give you a number, really, right? But I shared my example when I came here sharing all my personal data. Let's aspire to become a 6. Is that okay? Can we do that? Is that a good answer?
Yeah, thanks.
I should be a politician.
Thank you so much, Steffen.
Yeah, I have another question. Is it okay?
Yeah, okay. For
Of course not.
Right. So you mentioned about AI is the root cause of cyber breaches.
It's a contributor. I'm sorry if I left that impression. It's a contributor.
Okay. So I would
I've just been blinded here, so I can't really see you.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to ask your insight. Right now, so imagine an organization with business applications which are already, for example, most of the business applications are SaaS-based, And this SaaS application already put AI in their apps. And then as far as the network security is concerned as well, they put AI as well in their systems. Now, I would like to get your insight. How do you make sure we manage this AI, and how do we, what do you think? How can we ensure that we are actually able to govern and secure this AI?
I think one way, I'm trying to find the answer while I'm talking. I think one way to deal with you won't be assured at all. And no matter what vendors are going to tell you, it's always the language models that they're using, the intelligence they're using. That is always something where you don't have full control over. You might not always know how the logic is being determined. That's my opinion. Having said that, depending on who is going to review the results of what the AI tool is coming up with, this is how you can put the control in. Because my last sentence was, won't replace a human brain. I think this is how you can get the best assurance that all the results that the tool comes up with, at least the critical ones, really rely on that they are being challenged by human. That obviously is in contrast or in contradiction to you trying to automate and orchestrate your security decisions. So I think you have to find a fine line between how much you automatically trust the tool, that you have to trust them, and what are the decisions you want to challenge as a human being. I think that's how I would go about it.
Thank you.
All right, so that's it. Thank you so much, Steffen. Can we give him another round of applause?